Wide, unbound land. This magnificent part of New Zealand. The Maori translation of Wanaka describes it exactly. The lake provides a venue in the summer for many boating activities. Family and tourists alike are attracted by the beauty of this Central Otago lake, and the fishing's world class. The autumn gold replaces the treasure once sought by the prospectors, and now artists and photographers journey to enjoy and capture the unique glory of the time, generally around Easter of each year. On the even years of our decade, another unique event also attracts thousands to Wanaka. The colours are many. The shapes have a symmetrical beauty. The sounds cause tingles of pleasure and eyes to gaze heavenward. For this is one of those years. People from all parts of the country, and indeed overseas groups, have travelled from as far away as Europe to be present over the 3 days of this year's airshow. More than 50 sales and trade stalls, mostly aviation orientated, and many food stalls run by community service groups cater for the crowds during the weekend. From the humble beginnings of the 1988 Warbirds on Parade, the airshow, held each second year, has become an event that's rivalling the air pageants and rallies held in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's becoming known as the Duxford of the South. Numbers in excess of 50,000 are expected, and visitors to the district find road detours as they draw closer to the airdrome, such as the attraction of the show. The Wanaka Airport is an ideal place to hold an air show, as it's not surrounded by a built-up area, and there are many miles of airspace for aerial manoeuvres and aerobatic displays. Some enthusiasts have been transported to the event by the shuttle services provided. Others, coming from greater distances, charter passenger liners to gain access to the venue and bypass the kilometres of traffic. The de Havilland classic vintage airplanes share many design features. The shape of the rudder and stabiliser remain constant through a number of aircraft. The Domini, Tiger Moth and Fox Moth share the elliptical design from the Stag Lane factory. The DH-60T Moth trainer, in use by the RAF in the beginnings of the 1930s, was not entirely satisfactory. 8 prototypes were built using DH-60 fuselages, but with the top centre section moved forward and the outer section swept back 19 inches at the tips. These changes created the magnificent DH-82 Tiger Moth. The fly past of these specimens indicates the popularity of this classic as a restoration project. To standard DH-82 components, including wings, tail unit and engine, de Havilland designer A.E. Hagg added a plywood-covered wooden fuselage, locating the pilot in an open cockpit behind an enclosed cabin that accommodated up to 4 passengers. Colin Smith of the Croydon Aircraft Company at Mandeville near Gore in Southland was responsible for rescuing what remains there were of the original aircraft, and with components either remade or restored, commenced work on the Foxmoth shortly after the 1990 Airshow. Bert Mercer and Jim Hewitt flew Foxmoths as passenger and freight carriers, operating as Air Travel New Zealand Limited in the 30s. The airmail service operated by Air Travel was a first on a regular basis in New Zealand, and even more unusual by the fact that there was no extra charge for this early fast post service. In 1947, New Zealand National Airways Corporation absorbed Air Travel New Zealand. The classic Fox flew on, up and down the west coast until it was sold in 1953. Careful selection of materials, like the Canadian spruce spar, is the first step in the reconstruction of the wings.
The pieces we were presented really with as much as was removable from the original in Fiji and brought back to New Zealand, so very little of the timber work came back.
Routing of the spar material adds strength and lightness. Modern epoxy resin adhesives replace the original glue used. They're much stronger and far more durable and resistant to moisture. Each piece of wood that goes into the construction of a wing rib has had the same rigorous inspection and selection as that applied to all other parts of the aircraft construction. Each rib's assembled, glued, pinned and laminated exactly in the same way wooden aircraft have been constructed since aviation's very early days.
We were commissioned after the Airshow in 1990, and work started just some few months after that, and it's just gone on as part of the restoration scene here. It has had only one or two people working on it from time to time and not continuously, but it's been a project that's been worked at right through.
The de Havilland style of building entails using many parts to contribute strength to the whole, and typical of DH, even the undercarriage had a multitude of components.
Virtually all of the metal components came back, some of them in quite good order and some of course beyond use completely. So we've used what we could possibly use from the original, and then we've had to replace some of the other metal components because they're completely corroded and that sort of thing. One of the things that took a lot of time, that I didn't expect to take as much time, was the research into detail, because there appeared to be not a great deal of information available that you could depend on as to exactly its configuration. Because there is so much written about aircraft sometimes that are not quite right, you had to spend as much more time checking that sort of thing to make sure that you were positively right.
Instrumentation, spares and motor components are stored, ready to be reconditioned and installed in the aeroplane. The wings are covered in fabric, which is sewn onto the rib surfaces using techniques of the early days. This secures the covering and prevents lifting and distortion of the wing section.
Yeah. Down.
The fox moth was sprayed with layers of finishing coatings to protect the fabric against UV light, to give a base for colour, to fill the weave, and to give the aeroplane a pleasing appearance.
There are 5 hides of leather in the cockpit, and that's added a lot of weight to this aeroplane. The price that you do pay for these luxury things is the fact that your load is somewhat reduced.
The wheel spats, an extra option fitted to the Prince of Wales aircraft, were handmade, beaten from sheet alloy on a mould. The interior of the fox moth was reconstructed using laminated wood and ply, and it was accurately restored as documentation and research indicated. Rigging of the aircraft, establishment of the correct centre of gravity, incidence angles and general alignment are the final steps before the Fox is ready for engine and flight tests. At last, the Fox sees the light of day once again, 60 years later. Minor fuel feed problems require some manhandling by Colin Smith. Starting and engine run is passed as all clear, and the test flight's the first flight for 36 years. Pilot Neil Robertson found the Fox a remarkable little flyer.
finding this aeroplane, and is at 1900 revs, is cruising at 105, and at 2050 revs, we're up to 115 mile an hour, and with it laden, so it's quite a remarkable little aeroplane.
Based on a Piper J3 Cub, the 1942 L4A belongs to Stan Smith from the North Shore Airfield. It spent most of its life with the Army Air Corps in Honolulu. It's the smallest and the lightest of the aircraft in the Warbirds scene, having only a 65 horsepower engine, which gives it 75 miles an hour cruising. The L4 was bought in 1988 and rebuilt at a total cost of about $60,000. And had only 20 minutes flying prior to leaving Auckland for a trip to the Wanaka Airshow. The trip took them 12.5 hours, used 200 litres of petrol and 3/4 of a litre of oil. During the Vietnam conflict, it became apparent that the effective aircraft were agile machines with good slow flying near the ground abilities. This proved that the helicopter and modified civilian aircraft like the Cessna Bird Dog were a tactical advantage.
Yeah, we put a group together and restored this from, we got the fuse out of Vietnam and rebuilt it. So 2 brand new wings and a zero-time engine.
Yeah. So it's actually genuine ex-Vietnam.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. Yep. I can show you a couple of holes. They had bomb racks, which we didn't put in. Where they dropped the incendiary bombs that off it. You know.
Really?
Yeah, just over the target, nose down, drop, pull away, and.
So what you do? You had to redo all the skin?
No, well, these are 2 brand new wings.
Plug the bullet holes with bondo?
No, 2 brand new wings.
So it cruises at 100 and stalling speed at?
Oh, about 30, depending on the flat, but about 30 clean. And it's got a climb rate with 15 a flap, 1,500 feet a minute. And so it goes up like a helicopter. The likes of New Zealand, Canada and countries like that can go to Vietnam and buy the aircraft, but because the United States has not been talking to Vietnam, they're not allowed to take aircraft out of there because of the war agreement. But now that that's being relaxed, they'll be able to go over there and purchase the aircraft. See, there's people like a friend of mine, Jerry James in Canada. He went and got a Skymaster, and he can't do anything about taking that into the States until they relax the rules up there. Even to cross the border.
Clinton's got other things on his mind at the moment. His own problems.
On and how it happened. Made even more credible, I think, by the fact that the
In 1961, John Isaacs in England commenced the design of a 7/10 scale wooden replica of the famous Hawker Fury biplane, a fighter which was in service with the Royal Air Force in the 1930s. The Fury 2 is of all wood construction, with the wing being fabric covered and the fuselage plywood covered. The aircraft has only a 21-foot wingspan and could be likened to driving a single-seat sports car. It cruises at 74 miles an hour with a stalling speed of 42 miles an hour. A World War I dogfight display between Tom Grant's SE-5 and the Fokker triplane demonstrates the leisurely nature of the aerobatics performed by these aircraft.
Okay, so what we've got now is we've got the SE-5A with 2 the world's line 4, and it's See what happens with this type of aerial activity. Obviously, it's a lot slower when you compare it with the Mustang and the Spitfire and the aircraft that they made with the program. It's time and flies more like the conventional aeroplane. So you actually getting the old flip switch. He's wheel landing it actually, which is maybe a little bit unusual. We've got about a dozen aircraft, ranging from SC-5 to Father started the company back in the late 70s, and that's what we do. We do movies. We've some of the movies you might have seen out here, Memphis Belle, Air America, Piece of...
Well, that's really shorter. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, let's go up this river here.
Go up that river there, and you just sort of pop over, we saddle sort of up, and that's where Brian Hall is.
Okay, oh, brilliant, all right.
He was at the end of that little road there.
The epitome of an aviation enthusiast, Sir Tim is largely responsible for the Wanaka Airshow beginnings and continuing popularity. Ray Hanna, founder of the old flying machine company, was born in this country and moved to Britain after learning to fly. Mark Hanna, now managing director of the company, lives and breathes aviation, and the range of vintage aircraft that Mark has experience in is remarkable. Ray Hanna takes the opportunity at the National Tiger Moth Rally to familiarise himself with Sir Tim's Spitfire, and many a small boy's dream is realised when he can help with moving the famous airplane. Ray does his walk around and pre-flight check, a precaution taken by all pilots before taking off in any machine. Satisfied, the Hannas prepare for starting and takeoff for a display that's impeccable in its precision and daring in its execution. There are many aviation buffs whose pockets can't match their ambitions to own a classic Warbird or vintage airplane. But they can satisfy their craving by building their own aircraft, either as a home-built design or a replica of a much smaller scale. Jet-propelled aircraft powered by high-performance ducted fan units simulate jet-powered flight. These are replicas of a smaller scale, using construction methods, materials and power plants scaled to size. Computer-controlled radio systems provide a solid control link. Many model builders enjoy the aviation experience with both feet on the ground. True jet propulsion with the JPX turbine with speeds of up to 180 miles an hour at 130,000 RPM are now possible. This half-scale Focke-Wulf 190A4 made its first flights in November 1992. Powered by a Continental 200, this machine cruises at 126 knots. And being designed close to half-scale, the home-built is polyurethane, shaped around a conventional wooden framework of spruce and finished birch. It's then covered with 2 layers of fiberglass before painting. Generally trouble-free in construction, the largest problem came with the retractable undercarriage, the cost of which from an aircraft manufacturer was more than the whole aircraft. So an expert toolmaker and fellow member of the New Plymouth Aero Club manufactured a set of components. The Percival Proctor Mark V of the New Zealand Sport and Vintage Aviation Society at Masterton is a particularly rare aircraft, being only one of 2 Mark Vs flying in the world. The Proctor was built as a general-purpose people and baggage mover, but it was superseded in the 1950s by the American generation of Cessna aircraft, which had a smaller motor but could carry 4 people at a similar speed more economically. The Proctor's a very heavy aircraft with a 200 horsepower motor. It uses a lot more fuel than the modern general aviation product.
Oh God, there's that ugly thing there.
Is that what that is? Is that Apprentice, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I saw that one at Christchurch the other day. So,
They were painting it when we stopped for fuel at Christchurch.
I was going to say, it looks neater because I was down at Christchurch a couple of weeks ago and I rushed over to see it, so I wondered what the hell it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it was parked by the pumps there, and they were painting the bloody thing the weekends, right?
I was going to say, it looks a lot... Well, that was built for the military, that one. I reckon it's built for hillside railway workshops, I believe.
The Percival Prentice was designed as a replacement for the ageing Tiger Moths of the Royal Air Force. Some bureaucratic decision required that an instructor could teach 2 students, but pupils found it somewhat more complex than Tiger Moths. So in practice, only 1 student and the instructor flew. Modifications of a larger rudder with more movement and detachable upturned wingtips provided the control and lateral stability that were required. The Prentice never found favour as a trainer and was replaced in 1953 by the Percival Provost. A Chipmunk remains a popular aircraft for restoration. Spares are readily available, and coupled with a less expensive maintenance regime, unlike Tiger Moths, which have a similar power plant, a Chipmunk is a delight to own and fly. Although being a 1960s design, the air trainers flown by the Red Checkers provides a dazzling display that demonstrates the aerobatic capabilities. This aircraft has a unique place in the history of the Royal New Zealand Air Force. The Lockheed Lodestar began as a result of poor sales of the Super Electra. The prototype flew in 1939 with a Pratt & Whitney 1200 horsepower radial engine. This gave the aircraft a cruise speed of 195 miles an hour. The original carrying capacity was set at 15 to 18 passengers, but for military purposes some carried up to 26 personnel. 625 aircraft were produced by Lockheed. Small numbers saw post-war service, and this machine's becoming a rare warbird with a solid reputation. The helicopter was once regarded as a clattering, shaking, mechanical curiosity with little practical purpose, and it was not until the advent of the Sikorsky S-55 that the successful application of transport and combat tasks was effected. In Korea during the 1950s, the S-55 or H-19 was used for artillery spotting and medical evacuation, as well as troop transport. Troop transport and air rescue became a reality with the design. The S-55 was regarded as the first true service status helicopter. The Pratt & Whitney power plant was located in the nose, which left the cabin free for personnel or ambulance stretchers. The original Sikorsky S-55 design became licensed to Westland Helicopters of Great Britain and was named the Whirlwind, which was produced up to a Mark 22 variant. Now more than 30 years old, the Sikorsky S-55 is widely honoured as a museum display piece. This example of an ex-Korean War UH-19D Mark III is currently used as a spray chopper and is one of the oldest helicopters currently operating in New Zealand. Every air show has its fun displays, those events that are displays of skill and ingenuity that provides the lighter side of aviation. Some years, clowns hijack cubs or helicopters become sheepdogs. This year was no exception. The Cardinal Britain V1000 motorcycle is designed and built in Christchurch by John Britton. This amazing machine has been featured as the world's most advanced motorcycle. This bike will be pitted against a Hughes 500 and a pit special. Let the race begin.
And there he is in the off. The motorbike's got it. He's got his wheels in the air again. That helicopter's going to have to go to beat that motorbike. Who had the money on the Britain money?
But I think we'll be seeing something pretty spectacular. Helicopter is climbing to 3,000 feet above ground level. Keep your eyes on it because this, I think, is going to be something that you and I have never seen before. I think that we should take our hats off to both these pilots. First of all, to the helicopter pilot for towing the glide around like this with that rope dangling underneath his tail rotor, which is, after all that keeps him from becoming a big, heavy aluminium weight. and also to Bruce Drake, who is the first New Zealand pilot, to my knowledge, to ever be towed by a helicopter, and also the first New Zealand fighter pilot to do what is going to be done very shortly. Alan Bond first flew helicopters with Alpine helicopters, which was later to become the helicopter line. Glider is slowing down, and the glider will eventually stall. See the rope getting slack, and the glider will stall, and now the glider is going to hang on the rope. Watch. No, it's unfortunately the rope went underneath the glider, and the glider had to release because that act didn't go quite according to plan. But as Tim says, if you like to come back tomorrow, pay at the gate. And circuits round for landing.
Now, Bill, I hope you got the right strop on that caravan. I hope he's got the right caravan. It looks like my caravan. Do you see anyone in the ground? Do you see anyone waving? I have an idea. Surely he's not moving with the picnic still inside. No, my wife was in the brick, she wouldn't be out of bed by now. This is somebody waving through those windows. Hey! Oh! What are you doing?
Of all the aeroplanes of World War II, the Mustang stands beside the Spitfire and the ME-109 as that classic shape and design that small boys of the era dreamt of flying. The Wanaka Airshow was privileged to have two fine examples of the Cadillac of the skies. The North American P-51 Mustang was one of the very few aircraft to be designed after the conflict had begun. It was a private venture carried through with great speed. British interests asked North American in May of 1940 to design a fighter using the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. And in 102 days, they achieved what was previously thought impossible. The only aircraft the Mustang could not catch were the new German jets, like the Me-262. Very large numbers saw action in Korea. Many ex-Korean aircraft were converted to tandem two-seaters as dual trainers. Others were modified as civilian racers, even one being converted to ramjets on wingtips. This aircraft exceeded 500 miles an hour.
Good afternoon, Johnny. Welcome to Wanaka. Thanks for coming down to this Airshow. I was just talking to you before what in fact you were doing on D-Day. Just stop 1 minute. There's these two Mustangs taking off. Probably the consummate Mustang pilot in New Zealand today. Very much so. Yep, very much so. Trevor Bland is a very experienced, competent pilot Yep, that's right. so Stewart that the particular Mustang is powered by a Rolls-Royce Packard V12 Merlin. The more technically involved is the V12 inline liquid-cooled engine with a two-stage supercharger. Built in from 1,400 one road for a while. Made about 1942, 43, didn't they, the Mustang? I'll put you on to Ian. The P-51 Mustangs. They're just coming on you right now, the two Mustangs.
A Rolls-Royce Dart turboprop-powered version was produced by the Piper Aircraft Company, being known as the Piper Enforcer, the intention being to supply them to the South American Air Forces. As late as 1980, the Enforcer was considered by the United States Air Force as a light attack machine.
It was a bit like the Kitty Hawk's first flight 2 years ago. The Kitty Hawk flew on the day of the air show, and the difference with this one, it flew on the night of the air show. Sort out those people over there with coolie hats on. He's equipped with some guns, this little fella. But he's being rounded up by the helicopter. That looks very much like a Wanaka scene actually, with the sheepdog and the helicopter, but never mind. There's a couple of soldiers there, they're rounding me. These are called Charlie. These are the VCs, the Charlie. The simulated Charlie, with their friends of ours now, Wayne. So we've got they've all got their hands on their head and being rounded up by all the troops. Steppers to... the theory's for Wayne anyway. Tied in the scene up. It looks like that. Looks like the Jonathan site, that big gun is actually still off with it there, so I think that an airstrike is definitely involved there.
The attack on Pearl Harbor was by far the greatest military shock the US had ever suffered. These classic flying machines were among those responsible for its acting retribution on the Japanese military machine in the Pacific. The Lend-Lease Corsairs were delivered to the RNZAF with the arrival of 30 F4U-1s at Espiritu Santo. The first New Zealand squadron to fly Corsairs operationally was at Ardmore in January 1944. This was the beginning of a relationship of pilot and machine that proved a deadly combination against the enemy. During the occupation of Japan, Corsairs were shipped by carrier to the mainland of Japan. Post-war, some 438 Corsairs were purchased at the princely sum of £10,000, later to be sold for scrap. The J-Force Corsairs were bulldozed into neat piles and burnt on a bonfire.
Aircraft is sitting on the ground between the prop and the ground. Imagine when that aircraft is huge prop. This particular aircraft was operated by the US in the States right throughout the war as a training. Between the radials and the inline engines,
The ZK TBM Grumman Avenger of the Alpine Fighter Collection is a descendant of the original design produced to replace the Dauntless Devastator. The angle of the folding wings of the Avenger, not arrived at by careful mathematical calculation, but by Roy Grumman sticking paperclips into an eraser to find the best angle. The folded wing allowed carrier-borne aircraft to be accommodated more easily. The personalised Plonky insignia of Flight Lieutenant Fred Ladd was designed to insult the Japanese, as a teetotaler like Fred regarded pouring stale beer over the Japanese the most insulting thing he could do. In the Pacific, the Avenger lived up to its name and was reputed to be one of the great war winners of World War II. Flying on in peacetime, some Avengers were used as target tugs. Other tasks this veteran performed involved the 1949 concept studies with top dressing from converted bomb bays. Of the war, Grumman had produced 9,836 Avengers, including special variants. The Mark III P-40K was used extensively by the RNZAF and provided New Zealand with its first real defence capability, accounting for 99 Japanese aircraft destroyed. The Mitsubishi Zero replica is based on a greatly modified Harvard. Larger wings, a converted canopy with a different tail, to simulate an aircraft that was supreme in the air for a period during World War II.
That was the Kitty Hawk, the P-40K Kitty Hawk with the elephant. Picture if you can, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, yeah.
be a little bit cheaper to purchase than the type of aeroplane we're looking at in front of you right now, like the Adventure, the Corsair, and the Kitty Hawk. The pure jet aircraft tend to be the same.
The Griffin Spitfires were a development of the original Mitchell design that were twice the weight of the original and much faster. The Griffin engine has been said to be like a Merlin, magnified all over, and the power plant in this example was originally installed in a Fairey Firefly. The Griffin Spitfires proved excellent in their low altitude capability. General handling was similar to other Spitfires, with the extra power useful at the low-level speeds and steeper climbs. It was a much more powerful swing in the opposite direction on takeoff.
Getting airborne with Ray Hanna. Like those D-Day marks.
This example of the A-37 Dragonfly was of a type used in Vietnam. The wing root location of the two GE J-85 turbojets gave a smooth appearance to the aircraft profile. The A-37B was evaluated and used as a light strike aircraft in Vietnam and offered a useful weapons load. This aircraft proved attractive to several smaller air forces, and before production ceased in 1967, some 577 A-37s had been built.
He's demonstrating what's been known as a dirty drive, which everything is got.
Derived from the Pioneer Vampire, the Venom was potentially a good cost-effective land-based fighter bomber. The Venom FB Mark 50 was a basic export version of the Mark I and supplied to Switzerland. These aircraft were powered by the Fiat-built Ghost Mark 48 engine. The rather bright paint scheme is the official Swiss Air Force colours, and it's certainly effective for visibility.
And there's God came out in the morning and found him. The vampires were called
flyby of the Fighter Collections aircraft concluded the air attack, and an historic moment to end the air show.